you are searching for PHP basic tutorials, then you are at the wrong place, since I'll be covering up all the assignments given in the workbook of Pune University. So let's start with the assignment 1. Set A, first program. Point to be noted without using built-in function. So since we can't use built-in functions, we'll have to make our own functions. Use radio buttons, they have said, and the concept of function, use, include, or require statements. So let's start right away. Let's get into the directory to be very organized. You can make folders like assignment 1, assignment 2, like I have made. So let's get into it. Now since we can make PHP and HTML file, one for PHP and another for HTML, and then connect, and we can do the either way around. We can put both of them in one single file with PHP extension. So let's do the simpler way. Let's put them both in one file instead of having two different files. We have to take input. So we have to have HTML code in your program. Now the thing that I'm typing here, the form action thing, this statement will help me in connecting my PHP with my HTML code. Like if I'm getting an input from the web page, so to get operations done on that input, I'll have to write this statement, since I need to import that value to my PHP code and then export it again back to the web page. Let's create a text box, since we are going to need a string input. Here we say input type. Now this statement, input type text and name, is like you're gonna need it 1,000 times. Now here, input type text, when I get this text in this double quotes, it means that I am gonna accept a string or character or a group of characters. Now what this name does is, whatever I type over here, like A, B, C, or whatever single letter character, now this will store my input in the character A. For instance, it's stored in str for the HTML code. Now we need to import this str, whatever's there in str, to my PHP code, so that I can operate on it. So let's do it. Before doing it, let's quickly create a submit button. Now that's basic. I've created a submit button. This, in place of type, I've put submit, so that it creates a button for submission, and in place of name I've took value. Now what does value do? Value prints whatever's there in your double quotes, like this submit. It will print it on the button, submit button, that you have created. Now if you wanna have a search button, you can simply write search in the double quotes, and your button will flash like search button, search text on your button. Let's test this out. So whenever you're gonna like test your PHP code at home, you'll have to type localhost. Now after typing localhost, if this page is displayed and it says it works, then you have PHP installed and it works. Now after localhost, you wanna have your directory or path when you say localhost, you are already in the directory where www and html. Now after that, if you have folders inside that, like I have ass1 assignment 1, I'll have assignment 1 in the path, and then in my assignment 1 I have a1.php, and here is your output. So like I said, whatever is there in the codes is displayed on the button, but this button is not working since it's not mapped to any operations to show output here or somewhere else. So let's hop back to our code. We have created a text input and a submit button. After this, we'll have a PHP code. Now there's one thing to remember: form tag may be closed, may not be closed, it doesn't really matter, but your HTML and body tag, they should be closed. Whatever you write in these two tags, like these PHP thing, you have to give a semicolon, and all the semicolon rules of C++ applies between these two tags, so remember the semicolon. So let's start right away. Let's start importing. Now I have input a string. Now my input is a string, so I will store it in str. It never matters if your variable over here is same as this one. Whenever you want to use a variable, you can directly say dollar and your variable name. It gets declared on that place itself. $str. Now since we are using the method post, we'll have post over here too, and the variable in which we are storing our input in HTML code. Now there are, like I said, you have a variable in which you store your input in HTML code, and you have an variable in which you store your input in PHP code. So let's have it here. Let's do one thing. Let's have string as our HTML variable. Now all the contents of this string gets stored into $str. Let's print it and see if it works. Now whatever I input over here, like after I click submit, now I'm done processing the input, and I've given the output on the web page itself. So it says input is this. That's how you operate in PHP. Like, you have your input via web page, you process the input through PHP, and you display your output on the web page. Let's continue. Now our assignment says design a form to accept a string. We accept a string and display it. Now write a function to count the total number of vowels. Now this says write a function, and it also says use radio buttons, means it must look like a menu driven program. Let's have our radio buttons in the HTML tags. Like, we'll have our radio buttons before, and then after our radio buttons we'll have our text, which will say what option it holds. So now with this input type is equals to radio, we have created our radio button. Now we are gonna store our radio button input in an variable so that we can check whether our input is radio button or not. So we have stored it in a variable, our input. The next thing is value. Now we are gonna have a value to all those things which don't get a value from the user. By this I mean to say, if you are having a text box, you are getting a value from the user, but if you are having a radio button or a checkbox or submit button or a search button, you'll have a value to it which defines its uniqueness from others. Like in case of radio button, this value will define what my radio button's operation is. Now let's give it the name count, since we are counting vowels. And then after this radio button is created, I'll have my text. And then BR for new line. So whenever I'm selecting a radio button, I won't be operating on another radio button at the same instance or simultaneously. So here we have give occurrences of each vowel and check whether string is palindrome. Now all these three radio buttons are created, and then my submit button pops up, the input for my radio button, which says OP means operation, which operation I'm gonna perform on my radio button. So here's our input for radio button. Now whatever is there in OP, whatever is there, by that I mean to say these things: count, OCC and PAL. There can be only three things in my OP. So if I have the radio button like count, I have selected it, and then say submit, I'll have count getting copied via this statement to $OP. Now my $OP has the value count. So with this I can check which radio button is selected and act accordingly. I'm using strings as the contents of my radio button. I'm using NFL's ladder. If you wanna use switch case, you can have numbers in place of strings, like 1 in the place of count, 2 in place of occurrence, 3 in the place of palindrome, so that you can use a switch case and have case 1, case 2, case 3 simply. So let's use if ladder, FL's ladder. Now here I'm gonna check what's the content of OP. If it's count, I'm gonna count with vowels, and so I call the function named vowels over here with the parameter string. Else if OP is occurrences, I'll have my occurrences function called with my string passed as parameter to it. Or else if my radio button selected is for palindrome, I'll have my palindrome function called with the parameter passed. If you directly select if you directly input your string and have this submit button clicked, and this message should pop up. Now this message will pop up whenever you don't select a string. Whenever you don't select an option. Let's get to the functions. In PHP, you gotta write function keyword before having your function name. So function and then function name. Vowels and the parameter. You can have a different parameter name over here. We'll have a for loop to traverse this string. Let's say for $I equals to 0 from I to the end of the string. So let's say $n is the number of characters in my string, so that it goes into a traversing loop, and $I plus plus. Now to have the total number of characters, I'll have strlen built-in function. Now what this will do is it will store the string length in n, and I am traversing my string from 0 to nth character. Now for the 0th character, let's check whether it's a vowel or not. If dollar now to access the first element of a string, you can access it like as if you are accessing the first element of an array. str of $I. Now this will access the 0th element of your string. In the same way, and check it, this will access the 0th element of your string and check it whether it is alphabet A. In the same way, we'll have all our other vowels with the OR keyword. So here's the if condition done. Now I have only checked small case letters. You can have all these conditions retyped for capital letters, like just give a comma and just give an OR, sorry, my bad, type OR and go on. So here we have our 5 vowels. Now if a vowel is encountered, what should I do? I should have a counter variable, or simply say ctr equals. You can either have ctr equals ctr plus 1, or you can have this too works in PHP. But whenever you have a increment or decrement operator for a variable, you need to assign that variable to 0 first. Otherwise PHP will pop an error on this line. So if vowel is encountered, we'll have a plus plus operator. Let's move ahead. Now here's a vowels function done. Let's get to function occurrences. Is it occurrences? Nah, it's OCCR. Now in this function, we'll have to give the occurrence of each vowel, like vowel A has occurred so and so times, vowel E has occurred so and so times. So we'll have to have a loop for each vowel, or a single loop which counts the occurrences of vowels and stores them in different counters. Like, first things first, you will need to have the length. Here we got our $n, our first for loop. In this for loop, we'll be traversing our string. We'll have the same if statement, but with a little bit difference. We'll have if else ladder and this. Declare all these counters here. ctr a equals 0. Here we are with our counters declared. Now you can either just copy paste this loop, say 4 and double tap Y, so you are copying all these 4 lines, and just make minor changes. Like for E, you will be having E and checking whether E is encountered, and incrementing E for like E counter. This for loop will traverse for every character in a string. For the first character, let us say for the 0th character, it's traversing, it's A, and it's not E, not I, not O, not U. It counted it and had ctra plus plus. Now let's say it's on 1, I is 1, and it's counting the ith element of a string, so it's E. Let's say it's E, it had E plus plus, ctr of E plus plus, and stored it. Now let's say A appeared again, so it will have this counter plus plus again. So in this way you are storing the count for every vowel separately for showing or displaying the occurrences of each vowel separately. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna print occurrence of each vowel. Let's see. So whenever you have your page refreshed and you have submit button clicked, the first thing should pop up is your default outputs, like input is and nothing else in front of it, which means I've put nothing in the string text box, and option not selected. Where I did went wrong was here. These two else ifs had only single equal to. Every now and then mistakes happen. So let's go ahead and check the two functions which we created. Now let's have our string, like now we have our string A B C D E F G H I. Now let's count the vowels. Here it is. Input is this, and the total count of vowel is 5, which is correct. Now let's test it for occurrences. A has occurred twice, E has occurred twice, I has occurred once, and O is 0, U is 0. Alright, let's move on to our third function, which is palindrome. We are told to use include or require statements. Now what these statements do is they can allow you to use functions from different files. Like this is one PHP file, a1.php. What I'm gonna do is create another file, a1 pal.php, like palindrome, and have my palindrome function in this one. can pass anything over here. In this for loop, we will be traversing our string. For our string to be palindrome, traverse the string from left to right, and then traverse the string from right to left, and check the first and last element whether they are same. Reverse of string stored in a reverse function. Now here we'll traverse both strings from their starting points. Now when I traverse my original string from 0th position, I access the first element or first character of my string, and when I access my reverse string from 0th element, I am accessing my original string's last element. So in this way I compare the first and last element. We are gonna compare. Simple if statement. If it's not equal to the last element, even one of the elements, I'll have echo. One thing we can do is we can have a flag over here, and let's set it to 1. So if it's not palindrome, our flag will be 1, else it's palindrome. Now let's get to the main file. Now here let's use the include statement. Now what this include statement will do is it'll include my a1pal.php file, and I can use each and every function from this file after this statement. So let's have palindrome, and then you can call the palindrome function from the a1pal.php file. So let's check it out. So whenever you refresh, it gets the older output. So what you can do is you can erase your file name and keep this part till your directory and press enter. Then you can see the files in that directory and simply select them. Let's have a non-palindrome input. String is not palindrome, and let's have a palindrome input and traditional palindrome input. Let's try other words. And this thing works. So you're counting the vowels, you're counting the occurrences, and you're checking the palindrome. Also, you have used the include statement. So your assignment 1 set A first question is done. Thanks for watching my video. For the remaining questions, stay tuned on my channel for more tutorials. Till then, goodbye. Have a nice day.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me.